Good morning, girls. Well, I want to cover a few of the things that are taking place here at Starnes land in a few videos today. This is the center food forest, and I'm experimenting several ways in here. In the center is what used to be a few years ago a pond that was chest deep, and I could swim 2 lengths in, and over the years the sides kind of enclosed in, so I filled it in excuse me, hugelkultur style last year after I punched some holes in the sides with a machete all around about 2 feet from the bottom. And it's home to scarlet mambin, bananas, other cool plants, and now the area stays damp. So I hoped, actually today I'll be planting in there some seeds of kaboka squash, because my goal is to use a combination of deep chop and drop mulching. Like here, I just cut down this moringa with the idea of having that stump back there come back as a bush. I've got all kinds of tithonia stalks all over the place, and my goal is to let sweet potatoes like you see back there and calabaza vines hopefully choke out this very pernicious annual grass that pops up the second half of each summer. Excuse me, it's very fine bladed. I don't know what it is. I'm going to be cutting the top off of another 55-gallon drum, putting it in here, and I'm going to be chopping branches of this opuntia cactus, which is edible, but it's gotten way too big, and I'm going to be fermenting them in 55 gallons of water along with chicken poop from the hen house to start making a fertilizer for this area within its confines. This here is a dinghy I scavenged roadside years ago, and I raised duckweed for the chickens in there, and the buckets get excuse me, snails attach themselves to it inside and out, so about twice a week I take the buckets out, and the chickens readily scarf off the snails for calcium and protein. Here's my beautiful neem tree that Vicki Parsons gave me as a baby years ago when she took a class. And here's my wonderful everbearing mulberry that Andy Firk gave me last year that literally never stops bearing, so I'm going to simply have to bite the bullet, cut it back to make it bush, and I'm going to make cuttings, and I want to have a hedge of it all along this side here. This area here for my guava, same thing, it's a pit that was lined with a pool liner, punctured. This one about, 1.5 feet from the bottom, because guavas like it really wet. I've got mojito mint in there. Back there is a jacuzzi that I've got to plug up 2 outflow openings so I can have a nice place to soak in the summertime. A big change in my attitude here, like you see back in the corner, you see a paper mulberry that's been cut back. Here's one here. I've fought them for years because they invade and will always invade from this east property, which is almost always uninhabited. So I've got constant encroachment from paper mulberry, and instead of hating it like I did for years, I now see it as an on-site source of biomass. Cut them back, use them for chop and drop. The rooster loves to eat the leaves, and that way I'm less dependent on bringing home bags of leaves. Another big change is here. This was a chicken pen for years, it was a duck pen for years, and until this year, the top would be covered by grapevines like the hen house is to keep the chickens cool. Well, raising Muscovy ducks proved to be a real fiasco. I won't even go into why. Right now I've got a chicken living in there who has just one eye because she got pecked to death, but once I get her out of there, I'm going to plant peanuts in here because I decided this spring to sever all the main canes leading to the duck pen so that the canes would die, so it'll be sunny in there now. And go ahead and take off all these things on top that are in storage to be water-wise container gardens. And what I want to do is to plant this whole interior space with peanuts, and it should be very fertile after years of chickens and ducks living in there. And then say once a month I'll open up the door, which is on this side here, and let the chickens in to graze to their heart's content, and then close it, let it grow back for a month, and keep it up until the autumn harvest of the actual peanuts. Because it's really hard to grow greens for chickens in the summertime in Tampa, conventional greens. Here's Gracie's grape, which is thriving spectacularly this year, making tons and tons of grapes. Let's see if I can find some here. She's really growing like crazy. Here's more grapes here. This is the center food forest area that had become a real hell zone due to Muscovy ducks living in it for a while. They just basically kept me out because they were so mean, so I couldn't do anything in there. They trashed hundreds of pots that were in storage by walking on them. So I'm now duck free. I'm using, this is a potting area. There's some pots and leaves. Back there, those kiddie pools or whatever those are for bottom watering of plants. Back there is the cactus that seems to be thorn free, that isn't, that pokes people. So I've been chopping it up and putting it into a 55-gallon barrel back there, and I let them ferment for about 3 weeks, and so I can turn this painful cactus into a liquid fertilizer. Here's my beautiful Jamaican cherry, which, believe it or not, was barely a 4-foot tall plant in a 3-gallon pot 3 years ago this month. It's got thousands and thousands and thousands of fruit on it. And what I've done, and so far it seems to be working, is I've hung old AOL CDs from the branches and these green metallic ribbons that I dumpster dived years ago. Because last year, for a 3-month period, I did not get a single berry because of the birds. This here is another experiment. This is a roadside scavenge kiddie pool that I turned into a water-wise container garden. And for the first 2 weeks, the damn squirrels were coming in here every single day and digging up the okra seeds, really damaging it. So what did deter them for a week was fresh neem leaves applied daily. But I do have a limited supply, so I took this rebar structure that a neighbor gave me, and I've hung one CD from it. You can see it spinning there. And I went ahead and replanted the okra seed. And hopefully, as this area evolves, I'll have a ton of okra. I've also sprinkled Malachi seeds in there because they're in the same family and they like moist, rich soil. What's not obvious is back there in that green box, you see a Barbados cherry coming out. Below there is a buried 55-gallon water-wise container garden, and same thing there. That's a Gruma Chama coming out, and it's also growing in a buried 55-gallon water-wise container garden. Here's my Thai water spinach growing in a fish tank of very mucky soil, which I'm really fond of this as a summer leafy vegetable cooked. Let's see what else is happening here. The one problem I had last year, and it was kind of a good problem, is I had a passion fruit vine that went up into the canopy of the Jamaican cherry and shaded out some branches and killed quite a few. My neighbor, or her son, he meant well, but he came and cleared out her lot and accidentally killed the parent stalk of my passion fruit vines. But luckily I've rooted cuttings and I've got seedlings of a yellow type. But now I know that Jamaican cherries simply cannot take having a vine covering them up. There's my cassava, papaya, and back out of sight is an edible leaf white mulberry that Josh Jameson gave me. It's actually planted in the grave of my cat Angel, who died several weeks ago. That there is an old Orinoco banana coming back up from the base. And that's pretty much where I stand here right now. Is the one thing I'm really looking forward to is this old barrier fence, whatever you want to call that, which looks so third world and crappy, is very, very old. The original height, which is right here, years ago was tall enough to keep chickens out, but my soil line has gotten so high that they freely jump in. I had jerry-rigged it a couple years ago with some dumpster-dived canopy frames, but they're falling apart. So John the Cheapo splurged, and I went ahead and bought me a 50-foot roll of goat fencing for $37. And I also bought several packages of these green enamel fence sections. I'm using them as gates. So I'm going to be putting in a gate here for access from the side. Go ahead and take down all the funky barrier stuff and put up a nice proper galvanized fence. And then I scavenged this pool and I'm going to bury it flush, and I haven't decided if I'm going to use it as a pond or if I'm going to drill the sides about 5 inches from the bottom and make it another water-wise container garden, which is how I'm able to grow a lot of food here despite the drought. And my water bills generally average between $4 and $8 a month actual water use because I grow so few crops in the ground. So here's where we stand right now. Lots to do as always, but I feel like there's a nice sense of progress. Oh, one more thing. I had thought I'd lost my beloved Filipino-Mexican tree pepper to a freeze a few years ago, and luckily I found a pod. Alan Boatman identified it years ago as a cultivar of Capsicum frutescens, and now I clearly have not lost it, and I'm going to be mailing ripe pods to John and Debbie Butts for Eco Farm to grow. And what I love about this is when it's mature, it makes a true trunk. My original plant averaged 5 feet wide and 5 feet tall. It made literally thousands of peppers a year. The heat and taste is about the same as a good Thai pepper, but it's truly, truly perennial unless there's a hard freeze. When that freeze killed mine, it was at that point 8 years old. Oh, one more thing down here at the end of the hen house is Gracie's grape. Gracie was the mother of a longtime friend of mine, Mike Valdez, and she grew this for many years in her home and asked me to try to identify it. I was finally able to root a cutting several years ago. My best guess has always been Blue Lake. Very purple when ripe, very grapey flavored. And I'm so happy because this winter I thought it had died, but it clearly has not. That's one last pan, the Jamaican cherry. That's it. Bye-bye, y'all.